It's been often noted that one can graduate today with a degree all the way from the soft sciences to the hard sciences and yet not know how to buy a car, how to plan for retirement, even how to balance a checkbook. And the latter, I think I'm going to forgo because frankly nowadays it's not as important as it used to be. Well, to start off with, literally, because it's the first thing you'll do when you get a job, is you have a W-4 and a W-2. The W-4 is for your employer, and the W-2 is sent to you. And I'm not going to push that mnemonic because it easily could go the other way. The W-4 you fill out when you're first employed. It used to be mostly based upon your number of dependents and if you had major home interest expense. That's changed, and there's a website, I've got it up there. It's a little more daunting. You do it the first time you're employed and or if your circumstances change. The W-2 is sent to you for you to file your taxes, and copies are sent to the authorities for them to verify it. And one thing to note is to look at a box called Retirement Plan and see if that box is checked. If that retirement plan box is not checked, then you're free to open a traditional IRA account regardless. If it is checked, then you are restricted to the amounts shown here for 2020. The Roth accounts, which are not taxable going in and out, and that's regardless of whether that retirement plan box is checked, but is still subject to limitations, which are shown here, noting that the last married set of limits is the same for married spouses if they're not working for the traditional IRA account. New for 2020, you can now put in $6,000 a year, $7,000 if you're over the age of 50. It's called the catch-up rule, and that's the total between the traditional IRA account that's tax deductible and the Roth tax-free account. Many have said, gee, always go tax-free. Not necessarily so. If you're going to be in a state or a state of having lower taxes at the end, then you really should consider the traditional IRA giving you a better return, noting that the Roth does set aside more monies. Let's look at those states where they do and do not. And here are the states with no income tax, which means maybe you would be better off with a traditional IRA, noting that the federal taxes are regardless. And here are the states that do have high income tax rates, maybe making the Roth a little more advantageous. Somewhere around this time, you also probably think about getting a new car. And of course, they're going to give you those crazy deals, 72-month financing, you get a $2,000 discount. Of course, that's with 3% financing. On the other hand, we'll let you finance it at a full price, never go by the MSRP, and maybe 1% financing. And it comes out as no surprise. If you do the numbers, it's probably about 6 of one and half dozen of the other. In fact, doing these numbers here on a $34,000 car, 1%, $32,000, $2,000 discount at 3%, the payments are almost identical. And gosh, we can actually use that as an equation. It's the reciprocal of the annuity given here. And of course, I did monthly compounding. And you can use the same analysis when maybe buying a home. And about here, everything starts to pile up. You got the bills and the investments. Where should I allocate my funds? Pay off bills. Some people say to do that. That's not always smart. And or invest. Turns out, don't go by the amount, the payment, the length of time. Go by the after-tax interest rate. Whether it's a loan or an investment, put them side by side and allocate accordingly. In this example, after tax, the credit card is the highest at 18. Number 2 is allocating monies towards your Roth IRA account because it's tax-free. Number 3, allocating toward that pension even though there's a tax deferment. Then number 4 is maybe paying off your auto loan because it's not tax deductible. Then number 5, maybe allocating more monies to traditional IRA. Then number 6, paying off that student loan. It's probably still tax deductible. Then 7, maybe investing in municipal bonds. And look at that. People are so eager to pay off their home loan. I wouldn't advise it. It's tax deductible and a low rate. Another one is allocating your time efficiency, whether it's getting cash from the ATM, returning, recycling your cans, shopping, whatever. Turns out there's an equation, and it's trading off between how often you go and how much you hold in inventory. And it turns out there's a solution. Square root of 2 times usage times transaction over cost. I got a mnemonic for you. King Tut overseas. And you take the square root of that. Let's look at some examples. First example, a person uses $20 a week from their ATM, and they don't pay an ATM charge. We'll look at that a bit later. But that does cost, let's say, $1 of their time to stop and do so, and they make 5% annually. Well, let's see, let's say $20, 50 weeks, I know, vacation, times 2, times that buck, divided by 0.05. Square root of that, $200. In other words, this person should go about every 2.5 months, taking out $200. Second example, recycling cans. Drink 2 cans a day worth a nickel apiece, and it costs $3 to drop them off in the recycling center, and you make 6% annually. You work it through, $60, 20 cents a can. Well, that's 1,200 cans. Let's go back to your investing, pension plans, etc. And that's because you're going to do this every year. You want to kind of optimize them. Little tricks of the trade. Anything that is the product of the number of years and the percentage rate, if it equals 72, then you get a doubling. That's a nice shortcut. Look, if you can save $10 a day, that'll give you $1 million in 40 years at 8% the average return to the market. And guess what? That's almost exactly the amount you need on a net after-tax basis to fund your traditional IRA account. If you can save 2% on brokerage expense ratio fees, you can double that amount again. I even give you the annuity factor. But instead of computing the annuity factor, let's look at a graph. If you start at the age of 20 going to 60, or say 30 going to 70, 40 years, that's almost twice as much if you had started 10 years later. Yeah. And if you make 2% or more, it doubles again. Boy, if there's an argument to start early and max those accounts out, here it is in graphic form. It's just about here where people start getting the bright idea that they can start picking stocks. And maybe you can. Of course, most of the studies say you can't. And better idea, how about diversify? And that minimizes your risk down to that of the market. And you can even minimize the risk of the market by putting, say, the amount of your age as a percent in, say, safe bonds or the equivalents thereof. And maybe more if you want to sleep well, or less if you want to eat well. And you can rebalance, say, whenever you do your taxes. Learn to do your taxes. It's all computerized now, and who better to make that choice when those same forms are open to the portfolio as to your investing, as to the tax forms. And here's a tip: rebalance to diversify. And you know what? You actually wind up buying low and selling high. Yes, buying low and selling high. Why? Because you bought more of the one that dropped, and you sold more of the one that rose. There's a good tip. And maybe your idea of diversifying is, I'll miss out on that winner. No. When you diversify, you automatically include the best stocks in the portfolio. I believe that's the most killer tip of all. Well, we looked a lot of math here and the applications of finance to personal finance, and rightly so. That was the theme. You know, the present value of an annuity, future value of an annuity, the economic order equation, the after-tax rates as a way of paying bills, and so on. And if you did diversify, and we've already made that argument, it turns out some people still think they want to pick stocks because they'll get the return associated with the company, what it achieves, let's say, or the coupon rate on the bond, let's say, and that's just wrong. Math is a little daunting, trust me, and the holding period return for a stock is not the rate of return the company achieved, nor the market return, but its own self-same discount rate. For a bond, boy, that one took me a while to work out, you get back the discount rate. You don't get back coupon rate. You don't achieve what the company does, you would get back what the company should, making you again more respectful of a diversified portfolio with Dr. C Invests.